Hey everybody, how you doing? I'm Dr. Boyce Watkins from Your Black World, and many of you know about the case of Judge Olu Stevens in Louisville, Kentucky. Right now, Judge Stevens is under fire for speaking out against something that we've seen occur thousands of times that we felt powerless to fight against, and it was the use of all-white juries to convict just countless and scores of black defendants. In the city of Louisville, the black population represents about 20% of the city, but for some reason, a lot of these juries end up not having black people on them, which some would argue is a fundamental violation of human rights. I know I certainly feel that way. So to speak about this issue, I got a chance to speak with a couple people who are on the ground who've been involved in this fight from the very beginning. The first person here with me is Attorney Kimberly Button, and first I want to ask Ms. Button, how you doing today?
I am doing great. How are you?
Doing really well, thank you. And then also joining her is Mr. Jay Alexander, who's also been involved in the movement, the activism that relates to Judge Stevens. How you doing today, brother?
Fine, thank you, and yourself.
Doing really well, really well. Thank you, thank you. Now, I've been talking to you guys about the rally that's supposed to happen tomorrow. I'm going to fly down there and support. I just, I'm from Louisville, and so I think, I know that I know those halls of justice very well. I have a father who was on one side of the court, and then I had relatives who were on the others. Who literally went to jail out of that same justice system. So, I think this is a microcosm of what's happening all across the country. So, I'll start with you, Attorney Bunton. Tell me, how did this all begin? Where did this situation come from? I mean, I was confused. I thought judges were allowed to judge and make decisions and use discretion. So the removal of a jury for being all white, it doesn't seem like a big problem to me. Can you sort of give us the background on how this all came to be?
I can give you the background, but first let me just say yes, judges do have discretion, and all judges have discretion, including Olu Stevens. How this began was in December of 2014. He had a case pending before his court where he was faced with an all white jury pool, except for one African American in the mix. It was a 40-1 African American pool. And the defense attorney moved to have the um, jury pool dismissed because of the lack of diversity. And at that particular time, my understanding is that Judge Stevens did not actually grant that first motion. It wasn't until after random selection that one African American was removed from the jury pool that he granted the actual motion and asked them to go back to the drawing board on the jury pool. As the actual trial commenced and was over, and the defendant was acquitted, it was then the Commonwealth attorney that sought some direction from the Supreme Court through a motion for certification of the law, which is essentially a question of whether or not legally Olu Stevens, Judge Stevens, actually acted appropriately in removing that all-white jury. So that's kind of the foundation, or if you will, the groundwork of where we are today. Some months later, possibly, I'm not really sure on the time frame, if it was late October or in November, he was faced with that unusual circumstances again. And it was then at that time that he used his judiciary discretion to actually do the same thing, which is to remove the all white jury. And that became an issue that we're seeing before us today, where he's facing possible recusal because he was actually speaking out, an advocate for not having white juries in Louisville, Kentucky. So that's really the foundation of where we are today. We are very blessed to have a courageous judge in our mix. It takes a lot of courage to actually fight for justice and to act on justice, and that we are very grateful for in this community.
Mm. So, Mr. Alexander, I'm curious. Can you tell me, what your involvement is in this and why you decided to support the Judge Stevens?
Well, actually, I've been friends with Judge Stevens since he first touched down in the city of Louisville in 1995. I met him in a barber shop. I'm a barber by trade, and he came into our barber shop out on Brownsboro Road at the time. And I asked him, "May I help you?" And he said yes. So we formed a relationship from there based on the Washington Redskins, based on him being from DC, and I'm a Washington Redskin fan too, although we lost today. But That's neither here nor there. But that's how we began to build a relationship and a friendship. And after that, we've just always been in contact. And with me now transitioning from being a barber to a paralegal, he was part of that influence of me now beginning to be a paralegal. And I've been a paralegal for the last 4 years. So he took me on a trip and we discussed information about law and law school. And so this was 4 or 5 years ago. And I took his advice and became a paralegal. And I'm aspiring to be an attorney as well.
Hmm. Wow, well, it's great stuff. I think I might even know what that barbershop is. Attorney Button, I'm curious. Can you help some of us understand? Um, when we see judges, we think judges have a lot of power, and which they do. Um, but obviously, the power is not infinite, right? Judges can be questioned, and their decisions can be appealed. But judges have a certain amount of discretion to make decisions, and so I think one question people might have is, well, I mean, did Judge Stevens did he break some kind of law when he got rid of this all-white jury? Is I mean, why are they challenging him in this way? I mean, putting aside the bias, I think we see that there might be bias here. I think a lot of us feel that way. But I mean, it's one thing if he broke the law, you know, but he didn't break the law, did he?
No, in fact, he didn't break the law. There's really no specific law that addresses this issue. And that's really what the problem is. You're absolutely right. I'll say it again. Judges do have discretion, and he was well within the bounds of his duties, responsibilities to actually act. The first time he was actually making a ruling. That's what he was doing. He was actually acting upon a motion that was made by a defense attorney, and he had an obligation to rule one way or the other. That would be the first point. The second point is that yes, judges do have discretions, and unless they are being biased or they are lacking in objectivity, then their discretion usually stands unless there is a specific law on point, which there isn't in this particular case.
Mm, interesting. That is so interesting. So, Mr. Alexander, tell me, I think a lot of people, when they saw this kind of happen, they didn't just wonder about Judge Stevens as a judge. They wanted to know about him as a person. What I know about him is just, I had one conversation with him on the phone. He seemed like a nice enough guy when we talked, but I didn't know him as a person. I just applauded what he was doing. I looked up his background. I saw he's a Morehouse man. His wife went to Spelman. He reminds me actually of another great Morehouse man, Dr. Martin Luther King, also who's very articulate, just a very, because Justice Stevens kind of, Judge Stevens, I call him Justice Stevens. I keep doing that, but I don't know why. It's just a slip. I think I'm predicting the future. That's what it
You are
is.
predicting.
That's what it is. I think he's gonna do amazing things in his career. He may even, I think he should run for office after this one day, in case they do give him too much grief. But we know about him, from that angle. Tell me about what kind of man is he? What kind of black man is he?
I mean, he's a stand-up guy. I mean, as you can see right now, what's going on, what's happening. He's a stand-up guy. He's a man of valor. He's a man of dignity and integrity. Personally, I mean, that's all I'm gonna say as far as that's concerned. Outside of what he and I discuss and where we go and have fun and discuss things of that nature. But he's a stand-up guy. Actually, he came into my barbershop yesterday and supported the T-shirt movement that a friend of mine has created, and the T-shirts have actually become the face of the movement. And T-shirts say a lot. You have a lot of expression with just seeing a visual. So, with that being said, we're standing with Judge Stevens. Period.
And can I
Wow.
just say, as a
Sure.
colleague of
Mhm.
Judge Stevens, I've known him pretty much since I started practicing law, and I have never known him to be anything but upstanding. He's a very sophisticated gentleman, is what he is, and he is always the kind of person that you want to be around, and he is always gracious to others. And so that's what kind of makes this so surprising to see such an attack towards him because he has conducted himself that way both professionally and socially all the time that I have known him.
Absolutely.
Well, you know what it reminds? It reminds me of the unfair attacks on President Barack Obama. that occurred when he was first elected. Politics aside, I mean, I think it's okay to critique a politician or a judge or anybody on either legal issues or political issues, even if you don't agree with them. But sometimes the attacks get so personal, so strange, and you saw the president kind of go through that, and everybody's thinking, here's this man who has done everything in his life the right way. He's upstanding, intelligent, very capable, but yet he's still being treated like the rest of us, if you want to describe it that way. You know what I mean? And I think that that is a reminder of the kind of bias that we're dealing with. And one thought that came to mind. One thing I wanted to ask you about, Attorney Button, is I wanted to ask you, can you help us understand just some of this process? These juries, these jury pools. How is it that a city like Louisville that has 20% African Americans, how can they have a jury pool of 40 to 1? I mean, how does that happen? Is that random, or does somebody pick that? Explain that process to us.
Well, it is somewhat random. So jury pools are picked from registered voters and those who have filed their tax returns and from various sources like that. Okay. And so basically, one would argue, and there have been lots of arguments that we have not participated as much as we needed to be as voters, and that's why our presence is not there. But there are many ways to pick a jury. That's one of the reasons. But I can't really speak to why in that particular case. Can I just say, because I think that even Judge Stevens has said that this is a rarity to have it's 40 and 1. And even that second time when it was none, that it is rare to have so very few African Americans to pull from. Not that there are a lot. Now, I'm not going to say that there are a lot, but that's why these particular decisions were the right decisions, because it doesn't happen very often. You are faced with something that is very obscure, that doesn't happen in the regular course of business when he's practicing, when he's actually on the bench. So I can't say that it is because of our population in Louisville. We're about 25% here in Louisville, Kentucky. So you can argue that that's the way that the jury pool should look, approximately representative of what our population is in Louisville Metro. That would be, quite frankly, a dream. I don't know if that necessarily happens, but what you do want to have is something that is close to that when you're moving forward to seating these juries.
Are they drawing? Are they? If you look at the city of Louisville, you see that the West End is predominantly black, and other parts of the city become more diverse. Um, I remember. I'm wondering this. I remember in Syracuse, we had the same problem where you had a very black part of the city, and then the suburbs. And what they were doing, if I'm not mistaken, was, again, I'm not an attorney, but it seemed like they were drawing the jury pools from these external areas that were not connected to the inner city where the crimes were occurring. So the person was being judged by people who didn't live in the very same communities. Could that be part of the issue here? That maybe they're grabbing people on the east end or south and adding them to these pools that are judging what's happening on the west end? Is that maybe part of the dynamic?
I can't say that I can confirm that theory, but I can't deny it either. I don't think specifically that the neighborhood selection is really the problem here. Well, quite frankly, the problem here is that we need to embrace diversity in jury pools. Okay, so it really, if you employ any process, it needs to actually be executed properly, and that probably is one of the situations where I don't know if it's actually being executed properly. That would be something that would be examined by the experts on those issues. However, what we see here is that we've got, a situation where a Commonwealth attorney is actually questioning, really a Commonwealth attorney with the assistance of others, that is questioning whether or not, an all-white jury is possible. I don't think he sees anything wrong with that, and that in itself is a problem.
Well, you know what's interesting, and either one of you can chime in on this. We talked a second ago about the kind of upstanding citizen that Judge Stevens has been, and I haven't seen anything in his record that says that he is engaged in any kind of odd corruption or anything like that. Now, I looked on the other side of the fence, and I looked at Attorney Tom Wine, who's with the Commonwealth Attorney's Office, who's going after Judge Stevens, and I kept reading articles about severe allegations of prosecutorial misconduct, meaning not turning over evidence that would have been exculpatory to the defendant, really just doing some things that actually were described by the public defender's office as systematic denials of justice to people of that city. Can you speak to any of this? I mean, is this have people talked about this at all?
Well, very little, to be honest with you, but I think that the record speaks for itself, quite frankly. If you're able to see it, then others are able to see it as well. And I have long been an advocate in this particular issue to turn to the table and say, look at both parties in this particular situation. We spend a lot of time looking at a judge who is actually fighting for fairness and not spending enough time in a holistic view looking at the other party that is pointing the finger. So I don't think I need to say anything on that. I think you've said enough.
And here's the thing. I mean, it's not me just sort of picking bones here. I mean, you can literally go back to just 2014, just a year ago, and his office was accused of withholding evidence that I think one of his prosecutors just went in there and flat out, like, according to this article, it almost sounds like she flat out just told a fib, told a lie, and and then I'm reading, I'm thinking, okay, maybe that's just one bad apple, but then you just sort of hear these people saying, no, this happens all the time, and so it doesn't seem that we're dealing with a person who really believes in justice. I don't know, what kind of guy he is. I never met him, but it does seem that when you tie that with his behavior in this case, where he's attacking the credibility of this person who didn't break the law, who is simply pointing out something that's quite obvious, that you need justice and equity. I mean, he's not. Here's a funny thing. Just Judge Stevens is not asking for preferential treatment for African Americans. He's just asking for equality. And that's what's so interesting to me, that you are punishing this man. You're trying to marginalize him from the system because he's actually in the justice system asking for justice. What kind of sick person does that make you? I mean, seriously. I'm sorry. You don't kick someone out of the justice system because they demand justice. You should be rewarding that. So I'm gonna stop. You guys are supposed to be doing all the talking, but that's what I'm seeing here, and this is quite frankly kind of making me mad. But anyway, you know what, brother, Mr. Alexander, I'll let you get the last word. Where are things now as far as your movement and what's going on in the city? As I mentioned to everybody, I'm coming in tomorrow to participate in the rally. I guess the time and date are to be announced, but uh, what's going on the ground? How is the city getting behind this brother, or are people just kind of turning the other way? What's going on?
Well, Friday we just had a rally Friday in front of the Judicial Center, and it was a nice turnout. However, in my opinion, I think it should have been more than just us because of the call of the diversity that we're looking for. Had it been more, then it would show an image that this is what's lacking. But of course, when you see someone of your color or your race being attacked, of course we get behind them, especially when they're right. We get behind them, we galvanize the people, we start the grassroots movement. Um, there's people here that are in leadership here, like James Linton, Neil Robinson. They were one of the ones that were instrumental in actually organizing that particular rally to where we could bring some attention through the media to show our support and our love for someone who is actually standing up for something right. So the movement is going to continue to move. We don't want to kill the movement. We want to keep this going up until a decision is made, and even after a decision is made, we have to get out and educate the people about the judicial process as far as jury pools, voting, registration, and things like that, because that is important. And also, the Commonwealth Attorney has made remarks about his Facebook posting. All he's doing is just bringing awareness to the 2,000, I guess, friends he has on Facebook. But we don't want the Facebook. We don't want to get lost in Facebook or in Judge Olu Stevens. There's a bigger issue, bigger than Judge Olu Stevens and bigger than Facebook. It's bringing awareness to the unfairness of jury pooling, or for lack of better word.
Hmm. Well, you know what? I'll tell you what. I agree with you. It's certainly bigger than Judge Olu Stevens because that's why people are involved with this. I mean, this is not about helping one man keep his job or whatever.
Absolutely.
Right. It's about a community that is sick and tired of having these biased jury pools sending our babies to prison, just en masse. I literally went through the whole process of what justice looks like for Black people in America, and it starts with you're more likely to be stopped, searched, and frisked by the police because you're black, which means you're more likely to be arrested and more likely to be beaten by police, maybe falsely charged if you resist on any level, like that 64-year-old woman recently this week who was actually tasered by cops after he accused her of being drunk when she wasn't drunk at all. The whole video showed she clearly wasn't impaired, and it was a mess. It was an absolute mess, and you saw the situation escalate. So you're more likely to be stopped and frisked, more likely to be arrested or beaten. When you go to the courthouse, you're least likely to be able to afford these, $5,000, $10,000 attorneys, and then you're more likely to be threatened. You're threatened with this. You're threatened with Here's our plea deal. You can either take the sentence that we give you, and which may become a lifetime sentence because you're marginalized from the economic and political system for life once you become a convict or a felon, or you can go before this all-white jury, this jury that does not consist of your peers. Those ain't my peers, and this jury is statistically proven beyond any doubt whatsoever that these juries are more likely to convict you because you're black. That's not justice. That's a form of terrorism. That is racial terrorism, because I don't see anything about that whole process that in any way indicates any kind of justice. And so, I think that I applaud what not just what Judge Stevens did. I applaud what the people of the city of Louisville are doing by standing behind him. People around the world are starting to pay attention and throw in their support. I think other cities across the country need to take notice and speak out about their own system. And last thing I'll throw in here real quick is as you were talking, I did just more Google searches on this Tom Wine guy, and I want everybody to look this guy up. Don't just take my word for it, but I'm literally reading here where a judge, Judge Audra Eckerly, basically accused one of his prosecutors of intentionally withholding evidence and secretly trying to cover his tracks. So, at least based on what I'm seeing here, you're dealing with people that don't play fair. They seem to kind of want to win by any means necessary, and I just think that's wrong. I think that we just want fairness. That's it. So I thank you guys for talking to me. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
No,
Thank
thank
you.
you, brother. It's been an honor.
Absolutely, the honor is all mine. Okay, everybody, this is Mr. Jay Alexander and attorney Kimberly Bunton. They're on the ground fighting in Louisville, Kentucky, on behalf of the case of Judge Olu Stevens, who's under severe fire right now for taking a stand against all white juries being used to convict black people. If you are empathetic to this cause, don't just watch the video and applaud. Get involved. Get involved. There's one website I know of, supportolustevens.com, where you can go there, go to the Facebook page. You can follow up on everything that's going on. You can find the information for attorney Tom Wine's office. I'll put that with the video. Make a phone call, send an email. Just let them know you're a concerned citizen. You don't have to be nasty, but you have a right to do that. And I'll keep you posted on everything that happens. We got to get involved. We got to fight. If we don't fight, then the bullies are always going to win. So until we meet again, I'm Dr. Boyce Watkins from Your Black World. Please take care. God bless. We are gone. Peace.